If you had the chance, what would you add or remove from the next iPhone? And which variant would you add to your happiness formula?
Okay, on the iPhone, I don't often like to take products and think about what I would add or take away. I think about whether I like them. Over time, the iPhone has gotten a little bit more complicated in some ways. But look, I can almost always speak to get things done rather than go through structured procedures that get complicated over time. Even finding the app I want is sometimes a lot easier just to speak its name. So I don't really have too many things that I would take away. What I might add is a more open structure to where something that if you have an iPhone, you have Apple Music collections, it's easier to share those, move them to other devices. I would make it a more open world. The Apple apps, some of the specific apps like iMessage and FaceTime, I would just open those up and write FaceTime for A-phones, which is what I call Androids. And things like that. I would just look for ways to make it more available to programmers to be open source to where they can add their own enhancements and change how it functions. But the App Store makes a lot of that possible already, so I don't have very many complaints. Second question was my formula for happiness. When I was 20 years old, I went through a real thinking phase that if I were to die and I ran all these companies and I pushed people around and I got things done making the world work, and I died, I wouldn't be as happy as just when I go out and tell a joke and I laugh, or I see magic and I laugh. So I said, life is about happiness. How happy you are in emotional sense. Do you feel it? And the formula I said is when you feel good, you smile. When you feel bad, you frown. And I made a formula for myself that I've stuck to my whole life. H equals S minus F. Happiness equals smiles minus frowns. I do a lot of fun things to smile. I follow interesting people. I love technology. I go to movies or books. Entertainment is good. Music's number one. And for frowns, how do you minimize frowns was my bigger success. Don't worry that much about things. Don't care so much that you're going to be upset if the wrong person maybe wins an election, or if somebody does something bad to you, or you argue with somebody. Argue, you're just going to be unhappy. So don't have to argue. I think my way. I have to please myself. You have to please yourself. We can both be good people still. If my car gets scratched, I say, hey, cars get scratched. Don't get upset about it. Just take the positive, constructive steps forwards.
Gerardo Villafranco de Forbes.
¿Usted considera que que en México o en América Latina podría existir algún día un Wozniak o un Jobs?
Do you think Latin America will have or has equivalent to Wozniak or a job?
Any what?
Do you think Latin America will have or has an equivalent to Wozniak and or Jobs?
Have a link? Or
Equivalent.
a what?
Equivalent.
Similar.
A similar?
Yeah. Similar.
Similar? Let me see.
Equivalent.
Oh, of course, anywhere in the world. Anywhere in the world. We are known for starting in a garage. We never had a company in a garage. But a garage, you have to start at home when you have no money. Anywhere in the world, somebody could just have an idea that they believe in and enough talent to create something. And don't stop with everybody saying, no, this is wrong. No, this won't work. Don't listen to others. And that can happen anywhere in the world. In fact, there are several outstanding, important worldwide apps that occur far from Apple. And they're usually young people. Look at the newest companies that have changed our life the most. Apple, 2 people without college degrees. Microsoft, a couple of people without college degrees. You know, things got more interesting when we dropped out of college or we left college. Facebook started in a dorm room. So that just implies that, you know, it could be anywhere in the world. Facebook, you know, doesn't have to be Silicon Valley either. So I'm very hopeful for Mexico. I've had a lot of connection with Mexico, a lot of friends in Mexico. One I met, I'm trying to go back, 30 years ago maybe. And he had so many talents, but they didn't have the university education. in technology and digital technology back then in the university in Mexico City. So I actually even paid his expenses to go to college in England. And I said, look, when you are successful, you will be able to help other people, younger people that need your help and experience. You help them. That's the way you pay me back. And he wound up very successful. He avoided taking big, huge $1 million offers from Microsoft because, like myself, he didn't like money. You don't get bought. You do things for a good purpose. And then eventually he worked at Yahoo doing their security, and then he worked security software. And then he worked at Facebook doing different types of software, including anti-bullying. And a really good friend. He turned out great, and he always tells me how he helps other young people.
C7.
Like who? His name? Arturo Solar Behar. Arturo Behar Solar. But I have breakfast with him every now and then, and I went to his wedding in Mexico City, and he was so dear and loyal to his wife. It's too bad they got divorced recently. They have children. They live in Mountain View in Silicon Valley, and when I went to their wedding, it was the first time ever I heard a song that didn't come to the United States for 3 years, Macarena.
C7.
Hello, Mr. In your technical opinion, how hard was it to compete against to make a company of computers from a garage?
Well, it wasn't hard at all. That's the amazing thing. I was doing what I would have done for myself. I had already done it. I had the Apple I and the Apple II prototypes totally built. I owned them myself personally. And they were the basis to start it. The Apple II was the basis to start a big company with big money that could probably very well be successful. So I didn't encounter any engineering obstacles. I was just having A+ magic pouring out of my head for a 10-year period in my life. We did have to raise money. That you would call an obstacle. If you have to make 1,000 computers, okay, we found a way to make maybe 100 computers with no money. We got all the parts on credit where we had to pay for them in 30 days, built up the computers real fast, no lawyers, no company, and drove them to a store that paid us cash. We did it in 10 days, and we had 30 days to pay for the parts. But for 1,000 computers, we needed big money, and Steve Jobs went out pursuing that. He was the business person. He wanted the success. One thing I say is knowledge is less important than motivation. What you want is what you do in life successfully. And Steve found the money, the investment, and so that was very, very fortunate. I mean, you could call it an obstacle, but we solved it pretty easily. We got an angel investor who believed in us. He forced me to leave my job at Hewlett-Packard. That was my biggest obstacle. I loved my company. I am loyal to a company that I love. So first, I pitched Hewlett-Packard to do the personal computer. And they turned me down for the first of 5 times. 5 times my company turned me down for it. We had to start Apple, but I wouldn't. But then with the Apple II computer, our investor said I had to leave Hewlett-Packard and make Apple my whole life. And I had a day that I had to decide it, and I decided no, I would not start Apple Computer. I will stay loyal to my company. I will work there and be an engineer for the rest of my life at Hewlett-Packard. That's what I want in life. And I love designing computers, but I can do that on my own time. I had designed 2 computers in a year and written a computer programming language, BASIC, and I'd done solid storage systems. I could do that on my own time. I didn't need a company, Apple. But then Steve Jobs got upset, and he had all my friends and my relatives phone me. They all said, take the big money, take the big money. Finally, one friend convinced me we could take the money and I could still be an engineer at Apple. So I did it. And that's all I wanted to do was have a laboratory that I could go into and invent things and just be an engineer and not run a company. Too political for me.
Antonio Becerril, del Economista.
Thank you. Steve, what do you think is the most important skill that children and future generations should be learning right now?
Truth. Be truthful for the rest of your life. Truth is the most important thing of all the things that are good in life. Truth is at the top of it. Tell things the way they are. As far as how I might prepare for life, you know what? Society needs a lot of people in a lot of categories. You cannot say every single child should be one way. There should be diversification. What you fall in love with in your heart is what you should try to do in life. And whatever you try to do, obviously the digital world is where everything's going. Every company is digitizing their procedures and their masters. Programming should just be taught naturally. It's a way that you learn logic about life, whether it's writing a program or making decisions about, what book to read even. That should just be taught. And there's a lot of things that are taught in schools that we know how to teach from the old days that should really be given probably a lot less attention. But you know what? Every child should be able to go in their own direction. We can't do that. You have one teacher, 30 students. You can't let all the students, they all have to learn the same things on the same day. What if I got excited about chemistry? Could I learn chemistry every day and nothing else and learn college chemistry in 2 years when I'm a 10-year-old kid? No, school is never set up that way. You have to learn everything at the same time as everyone else. That is a problem with schools. A good thing like a computer can't go in and change a bad system. Could that system ever change? Maybe. Maybe not. What if we had computers that were like a human teacher? So personal that became your best friend. A computer becomes your best friend, not the humans. And it cares about you. It knows your heart. It knows what's going on in your life and your home and what you like and what you won't. That could be a teacher that lets every student go in their own direction. One low-cost teacher per student. One teacher can never fail. So, but anyway, obviously I would say we should make programming computers and building working models, having microprocessor boards like Arduino, having sensors and having motors and hooking up and building projects. If you build little projects that have no meaning to starting a company, not even to get a grade, you build that on your own, you're a maker, you've got the skills that are going to be needed in the future. So you can be a maker in or out of school.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wozniak. Se tiene que retirar a un evento más. Agradecemos mucho su presencia y muchas gracias.